Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Namaduhu wa nasalli ala Rasulih al-Kareem. Viewers, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is a follow-up to the video, The Science and the Jinn. As has been said before, the Jinn is a creation that is not visible to the human being. And we have been told in the Quran in great detail about this creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The shaitan, the devil, is a jinn, and the Quran talks about the shaitan in great detail, that he is an enemy to all human mankind, to all mankind. This enemy is within every person. Every person who is born in this world is assigned with a jinn. But unfortunately, science is not able to know anything. Just imagine there is an enemy within each person, and science is helpless with regards to finding out who the enemy is. And this enemy is the one that creates problems for the humanity. When you have a situation where the humanity doesn't even know who the enemy is, can you imagine how difficult that position would be? How hard it would be to fight a battle against an enemy that is not visible, an enemy who's committed to destroying the human being. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave knowledge to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and for 23 years he was teaching his companions, the Sahaba, about this enemy, about this creation of Allah, who is not visible. He did not come to teach science, which is not to say that science should not be studied. But we know from history that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was not a scientist, and he did not teach science to his followers. But his followers who studied under him for 23 years, as the Quran was being revealed, they became the strongest, they became the most successful. The Muslims have never been able to achieve the kind of success the Sahaba achieved in about 50 years' time. We have to understand that these people were not trained or not taught science. They were taught how to get the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Science is a study how to get the help of the creation, how to get help from computers, how to get help from robots, how to get help from cars and planes and so on and so forth. But science cannot teach how to get the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So these people, the companions, they were not students of science. They were students of revelation. They were students of a knowledge which is beyond the understanding, the comprehension of science. And they were able to humiliate the nations that were very highly advanced in science of that time, that is the Romans and the Persians. This is a lesson for all Muslims who are enamored, who are overwhelmed by the achievements of science, and they never stop talking about how great science is. But science, with all the knowledge, is not able to come anywhere close to the success that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam achieved and the success that his companions achieved. This knowledge is very important for every human being. Every place in the world that people are learning science, and there's no denying that there's nothing wrong with that. This is not to challenge, and this is not to downplay the importance. But at the same time, it would be a big mistake for Muslims and for everybody. This knowledge, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is mercy to all mankind. He was sent as a mercy not just for a particular group of people, but to all mankind till the day of judgment. And that knowledge is essential. Imagine the fights that go on in the courts all over the world. They are not fights between one religion and another. They're fights between husband and wife, between children, between people, between employers and employees. All these fights that go on, they are human problems. And science is not able to handle these problems. Human beings have issues, and they don't know that the issues or these problems come as a result of the enemy within them, the shaitan, the devil, the jinn. He's there to create problems for human beings. He creates mischief. He creates problems of all types, which bring destruction to the human being. And this knowledge, unfortunately, is not studied. If it's studied by very few people. And the few people who study it are not able to reach out to the people who are completely ignorant of this knowledge. So science has become so-called the god of the present times. This is the big trial of the present times, that people are so impressed with the achievements of science that they forget that there is a knowledge that is so important for the success of the human being. The success that was given to the Prophet ﷺ has never been reached by anybody till this present time. He is the role model and example. And he taught for 23 years, he was teaching his companions how to get the help of Allah. Science cannot teach people how to get the help of Allah. It can teach people how to get the help of machines. It can teach people how to deal with the material problems. But human beings are not material beings only. They are spiritual beings. They have concern. They have emotions. They're people who are living in depression. They're people who are living in poverty. They're people who are living in conditions that are unbelievably hard. And this is not because that science is not trying to solve these problems, but science does not have the solutions. The problems that come are because of this creation, the evil spirits, the evil creation of Allah. That's why the hadith of Rasulullah, a dua, prayer, I seek refuge in Allah from all the evil that exists. And this is something beyond the comprehension or the reach of science. So viewers, it's very important that human beings look into this knowledge. The Quran is a book that gives all the instructions. Rasulullah spent 23 years explaining the Quran, teaching the people how to get the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He gave them so many examples. He gave them so many he gave them so many instructions, so many prayers. People came with real problems, poverty problem, health problem, all kinds of problems. But Sahaba understood how to deal with the problems because they knew the shaitan, the devil, the jinn, he is there to mislead them. This is an area that has to be explored. Even unfortunately, the Muslims, when they were attached to the Quran, they were attached to the Hadith, they were attached to the deen that came with Rasulullah ﷺ, they were successful, they were invincible. Wherever they went, people followed them. But later on, shaitan, the jinn, he was able to mislead them, take them away from the knowledge that Allah had given and turn their attention to an inferior knowledge. And that brought destruction to them. And we know from history that the Muslims of Spain, they turned from revelation, they turned from the knowledge that Allah had given, the Quran, to the knowledge of human beings. They turned to science. Until this day we hear a lot of lectures and a lot of talks how advanced the Muslims were in Spain. But we don't hear very much about what happened to them. We don't know how the Sahaba came to so much success. And we know how the Spanish Muslims, for example, and the Muslims in India, they also reached very high levels of science of that time. But because they had deviated from Islam, they turned away from the teachings of Islam, they brought destruction upon themselves. This is a lesson for all the people in the future times. That science has limitations. It doesn't teach people how to deal with a creation of Allah that is not visible. And that's the one that's destroying the human being. That's the one that brings destruction. Human beings have choice. They have to decide for themselves. If they want to solve the problems, then the solutions are there in the Quran. And if they do not want to solve the problems, they can go on, and if they go on for 1,000 years, they will still not be able to solve the problems. We know from history that Muslims came to a lot of wealth, a lot of power, but because they did not have the guidance, they had left the guidance of the Quran and the Hadith, they were misled, and we know what happened to them. This is a tragedy that is going on right now in the world. Everywhere one goes, one sees the concentration, the attention is only to science, and thinking that success is going to come from science, whereas success Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put in His complete deen. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decided that success will come only with the deen, with the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If people ignore that life, no matter how much the advancement they have in science, how much wealth they have, they will bring destruction upon themselves. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave instructions, he gave knowledge to people so they can be successful. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves His creation and wants the creation to be successful. If the creation turns their back on that knowledge, then they have nobody to blame except their own selves. We see, unfortunately, even in the Muslim countries, where the institutions and the leaders in education are concentrating on acquiring knowledge of science and forgetting that science has brought destruction to mankind. Just one-sided. This is the one-sided approach. Science is useful with regards to the needs of a human being. Science can help a human being with regards to the needs that exist around him. Human beings need transport, they need houses, they need roads, they need bridges, they need all computers. All these things are the needs of a human being. But a need is no more than a need. It's not the purpose of human being. The science cannot make a human being into a human being. A person can be the best physicist, a person may be the best nuclear scientist, a person may be the best engineer, architect, but he may not be a good human being because science is not able to teach that person how to be a human being. So the knowledge or the education that goes on throughout the whole world is one-sided. It's just looking at one side of the human being, the material side. It's forgetting that the human being is more than a material creation. The shaitan, the jinn, is the enemy, and that enemy is not visible. And he keeps whispering. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has allowed him that power to whisper and to misguide people because it's a test. Human beings have been told, have been warned. This knowledge comes from the Quran, a book that most people don't read. People are not even aware of this. Just imagine a disease is spreading all over the world and people don't know about this disease. And people are dying all over the world and nobody is able to tell them how to solve that problem. Can you imagine how desperate the position would be? These days, everybody is concerned about the spread of the coronavirus. Millions of people have died and people are suffering. So they expect answers to that question. People are looking for solutions. They're looking for cures. They're looking for ways to solve that. So by the same token, human beings are suffering as a result of the attacks of the devil, of the shaitan. And people are looking to science to solve that problem. Science cannot fight the devil, cannot fight shaitan. Science doesn't have the power to fight this enemy which is with every human being, every single human being. According to the hadith of Rasulullah, the shaitan runs in your body like the blood runs in your vein. So when you have an enemy sitting inside you who's determined to destroy you, that's a big problem. And this problem needs to be addressed. So we know it's not a problem just for the rich or the poor or the black or the whites. It's a human problem. So if anyone is concerned about human rights, they have to turn to the Book of Allah, because that book tells us about human rights. What are the rights of a human being? What are the responsibilities of a human being? The knowledge of science cannot tell about the future that's going to come. The future that's coming is not known to science. Science can only go as far as their means are. What's going to come later on is beyond the reach of science. Science cannot take a person to paradise. Science cannot save a person from going to Jahannam, going to hell. This is a need of human being to be successful, not only in this world, but in the world to come. And this knowledge only comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that you think that when you die, you will be finished. You will not be finished. A life is going to come, and that life will never end. And no matter what you achieve, no matter how many Nobel Prizes you win, no matter how many achievements you make in science and technology, a day will come when you'll have to leave this world. All the scientists, the great scientists of the world, are gone. Their scientific achievements, their knowledge will be of no use to them in their graves, in their life that's coming. So what about that need of a human being? Who is going to be worried about that? The prophets came to talk about that need. The human being is not finished when he dies. He's been sent here not to stay, but to leave. Every single human being has been sent to leave this world sooner or later. And if he doesn't know that, then he is deceiving himself. And he is being fooled by the devil, by shaitan, to think that he is being sent only for a small number of years just to enjoy himself and then be forgotten. This is not the purpose of this human being. And this knowledge is not with science. The knowledge is with the Quran, with Allah, with His Prophet. This was a knowledge, and this was imported. And the interesting thing is that the Sahaba, the companions, learned the knowledge that he came with, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala elevated the dunya, this world. They were elevated in this life. This is the amazing thing, that they were not pursuing this world, but the world came to their feet. And the people who are pursuing the world is running away from them. This is the amazing fact that one sees, that the more they go after this world, they chase the things of dunya, the more it goes away from them. And the more they learn about Allah and the knowledge that He has given, the more the dunya comes easily to them, which is what happened in the case of the companions. They were not running after the material things of the world. This was of no concern to them. But this dunya was coming to their feet, which never happened after that. It didn't happen because the people who came, the Muslims who came after that, they started going in the other direction. They started running away from Allah and started running towards the dunya, towards this world. And the world started running away from them to the point that it humiliated them. And this is fact recorded in history. All one has to do is look at the history and see the more the Muslims ran after dunya, chased the dunya, the more dunya ran away from them, and they became more humiliated and ended up destroying themselves. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the understanding of the Quran, to give us the understanding of the hadith, and to follow in the ways of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Wa akhirat dawana in alhamdulillah rabbil alameen.